All right, we are live. Welcome to Doc Talk on a Thursday evening, and we thank you for your patience. Today we had some issues with connectivity and some mic input, but it's all resolved now. So we're ready for a great hour. Thank you for your patience. So we're going to be running this program for about it'll be about 45 to 60 minutes. And we got a great program on here. Please feel free to make some comments. We'll be broadcasting your comments on the screen. And we have a very exciting program. And so we're going to get right to it. And we actually have a live audience right here. The live audience right here at Simmering Kettle in Barrie, Ontario. Beautiful Simmering Kettle. Let's hang on here. Okay, so let me just get this in here. Here we are live at Simmering Kettle, and the chat today is going to be on some very provocative topics, and those are going to be at Simmering Kettle. Just give you a little bit of a background. Barrie, Ontario, south end of Barrie, Ontario, have beautiful breakfast here. I think I wrote a good part of my book here at Simmering Kettle, a great breakfast that kind of lingered on for me for hours over coffee once the creative juices come on board. So here's Simmering Kettle and beautiful restaurant. Here's Shalou. Shalou, the owner, who happens to be right here live. And if you're here in house, you can go right to Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, or Twitter, and you'll be able to see the program. Can you see it there, Jen? Are you on there yet or not yet? Okay, so thanks, Mary. Excited about tonight's show. Just gonna post your comment right here. Okay, so we're gonna really want to have a really interactive program here because we got some great topics. First topic is the near-death experience a glimpse into the afterlife? In other words, what happens after life? Are we purely, as atheists or Darwinists would say, just physical beings that we're just going to go into the ground and decompose and decay? Or are we actually eternal beings that have a spirit that will live on beyond this life? So as far as the near-death experience, really, basically, there are two theories. The one theory, of course, is that's purely physical, that there's brain trauma or chemistry disturbances in the brain that will result in the so-called near-death experience. So the hardcore atheist materialist, if you will, would say it has nothing to do with a spirit. It's purely physiologic and physical. And then, of course, there's the spiritual theory, which says that we are actually separate as physical and spiritual beings. So the spirit lives in us, and when we die, a spirit ascends from the body and goes into its eternal destination. So we're actually, if you recall, we did have Jimmy here with us. Jimmy, I'm going to bring you into the stream here and get you right on here. So we had Jimmy with us here. Let me just get this. Okay, so Jimmy, can you hear me here?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, if you can just speak a little bit louder, and I'm going to tell you the dramatic story of Jimmy. So Jimmy, back a few years ago, and he's going to recount this for you, was playing in a football field. Basically, going to play a game of football on a Sunday, and then this happened. Jimmy, can you tell us about that fateful day briefly, like what happened, and especially emphasize that experience where you felt yourself propelling out of your body after getting struck by lightning? Can you just describe that for us briefly?
Yeah, is the volume okay? You can hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so it was just a Sunday. We were just going out to play football. Long story short, I went out to catch a couple warm-up balls. Bang. Uh, you know, uh, I don't remember anything after that other than it felt like I was floating, and I could see the sky and I think it was the sun. I think I was floating towards the sun. That's what it looked like to me. And yeah, I got up near the clouds, and I looked down, and I saw the field, and I think I was descending, and uh, yeah, I mean, I remember some pain, going back down when I looked down at the field. I didn't see anybody on the field. Um, and yeah, I woke up in a hospital 3 weeks later. Um,
So you have no recollection after being struck by lightning. No recollection of the events after.
no, like I said, it was I could hear when I was in the coma, I could hear certain people talking to me, but as for that day, um, no, after the lightning strike, I mean, I was. They said that there was no oxygen to the brain for 7 to 10 minutes. Um, but all I remember, like I said, was going to the sky. Um, Perfect temperature, no feeling of anything. Um, it just felt natural, and then coming back down, it was kind of confusing. And then yeah, it was an indescribable pain. Like, it wasn't like I felt pain in my leg or my head or something like that. It was just an overall pain.
Well,
um,
was when you were ascending like toward the sun, like how
yeah.
would you describe the emotions that you felt? Was it sort of like a happy, joyful, peaceful experience, or was it horrifying?
No, absolutely not. I wouldn't say it was happy or joyful or horrifying. It just felt natural. Like, I don't know if um, some people prefer to be at a certain temperature. They like to be colder or hotter or whatever. And it just felt perfect. That's the only way to describe it. It just felt so natural. I didn't really feel um, any type of feelings you would normally feel in your body. There was almost like no feeling. So it was just perfect. That's just the way I could say it. Um,
What's showing on the screen right now? Is that you having a cardiac arrest after being struck by lightning on the ground there, and who's
yeah,
with you?
Yeah, that would be the guys we were playing football with, mostly. Obviously, the police were the first to respond. Those were officers there. I don't know who the old man is, and he probably was just somebody passing by or a neighbor. If you look up some of the articles from when this happened, there was a lot of comments from people who are residents, and they heard or saw the lightning strike and saw me in the field. And then, yeah, that's me in my I'm wearing an undershirt and some shorts, it looks like. And I still actually have my father kept the undershirt and the shorts, and there's burns all through them. uh they're pretty
Wow.
toasted.
And we're gonna go to the listener participation soon, and so to get everybody's view on whether this your experience could represent a separation of spirit and body, whether your spirit actually left your body, or whether it
Yeah.
was purely just a brain physiology or brain chemistry, brain trauma. What's your take on it? You've experienced it yourself. There's been a lot of literature on near-death experience. What do you think happened that
Yeah,
day
to me, there's
when you
no
were up in
question
the
in
sky?
my mind. There's no question in my mind whatsoever. I think the spirit left the body, and yeah, and I think when I was brought back, like I said on the last show, they used it was electricity that put me down, and then in the ambulance they brought me back with electricity. But yeah, no, definitely the spirit left the body, and to me, it's no question. Um, yeah, there ain't.
What would you what and So, sorry, Jimmy. What would you say to the skeptics that say, "Oh, you didn't have a spiritual experience. This was purely just your brain waves. Something happened in your brain that's purely physical." What do you say to those people, the skeptics out there?
Well, that's exactly what they are. They're skeptics because they haven't gone through it. I
Right.
mean, they don't want to try it themselves. I'll tell you that much. But
Well,
me,
it's it's very very interesting you say that, because in fact, there was one psychiatrist who did extensive research over 2,000 near death experiences, and almost everybody concluded that it was a spiritual experience rather than a physical one. So like you say, like obviously we don't relish the idea of being hit by lightning, but you've done it, you've survived it miraculously, and here you are. So thanks so much, Jimmy. We just wanted to launch off with your thoughts, having experienced this. Uh, Not too many Canadians can say that they survived a lightning strike with heat apparently comparable to the sun's heat. If you look at actually the amount of temperature that actually hit your body for that microsecond, it
Mhm.
is actually comparable to the heat of the sun. So thank you very much again for your time and your thoughts, Jimmy. Any last thoughts before we move on to audience input?
No, no, the only one thought would be is, um, a lot of people fear death, and that's part of the reason why I agreed to do this, was because I really think that there shouldn't be much fear as long as you do the right thing while you're here, and you know in your heart what's right and what's wrong. And I think that maybe, hopefully, if anybody is having any health problems, this kind of calms them, and then they're just not afraid. That's all I would really want to say.
Thanks very much, Jimmy. I think you have the credibility to speak about spiritual issues, having gone through what you've gone through. So thank you. Shalou. Oh, so I have a question here from the audience.
Yep.
Are you still there? How has your life changed since the lightning strike and the near death experience? Good question. You can also
Um,
grab the cup.
Spiritually, it's very much the
Look,
same.
it's
I
ready.
don't really, I mean, I still had the same values and beliefs, except now, like, the fear of death is just not there. Um, as for medically, there's a lot of
I'll
differences.
bring it.
I don't even know where to start. My memory is awful. Um,
Okay,
Emotions are
we
different.
have it is Shalou. Shalou is actually here. One sec here. There you go. We turn this up a little bit. Okay. Now you have to. We just have to move a little further back or we get echo. Okay. So Shalou, are you on there?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we have actually live interact. If you could just look at the camera, Shalou, just there you go. There you go. Okay, and you can pass that around to anybody in house that actually wants to participate and ask Johnny some questions. Thank you very much for that, Jimmy. I should say. Sorry, I keep calling you Johnny. Okay, so Shalou, you have a direct question. Shalou, the owner of Simmering Kettle, best breakfast in town. I've had many of them here. So Shalou, a question for Jimmy.
Well, my question was how is life different for you? Like I can imagine that that would have changed you in many different ways, right? But can you give us some examples of ways you might have behaved in previously and how you behave differently now as a result of that experience?
Yeah, so like I was saying, like, spiritually, there's not much difference. I always tried to do, what I felt was right in my heart. My mom, kind of taught me that growing up. But there's no fear of death. I mean, I don't know if I feared death before, but I really don't fear it now. I'm pretty confident in what's going to happen next. Um, but medically, there's so many differences. My memory's awful. Um, it's hard for me to sleep. The list just goes on and on. There's so many. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, even I got to write a lot of things down. I normally write them on my hand because I know I'm not going to lose my hand. If I write it on a piece of paper, I might lose the paper. It's just there's so many things. Yeah, the list just goes on and on and on. It's all pretty well. What goes with a brain injury? It's a severe brain injury, is what it is.
No, it's funny you say that spiritually your life hasn't changed much. it makes total sense, because I think that's probably why you survived it, right?
That could
Because
be.
God had his hand on you. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I understand that. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Well, wait a minute. I got a question for you. If I come in for breakfast, what should I order?
Oh my goodness. Well, it depends what you like. We got the best skillets, the best omelets, right? I
Okay.
mean,
Can I weigh in
yeah,
on that,
for
Shalu? I would
breakfast,
say
yeah, our pancakes
the
are, you know,
three cheese omelet is my favorite. It's
there you
Three
three
go.
cheese
cheese
omelet.
omelet with
Okay.
jalapeno peppers. If you like
There you
jalapeno
go.
peppers.
Hey, that's what I'm gonna order when I come in then.
Okay,
All right, well,
Johnny,
let me know, because
we
then I'll make sure I'm here
Jimmy,
to meet you in person.
yeah,
Okay.
we need to have set up a meeting up here at Simmering Kettle. Okay,
Absolutely.
let's do it in the next week or two.
Oh, I'm going away, Doc. It's gonna have to be in the next month, but I'll be
Oh
back.
yeah, that's right. Okay, yes. Okay, so thank you again, and Shalu, thank you for a great question there. So Shalu hopefully will have inspired the audience. I know there's lots of people that are listening here with us. Can you
Question?
uh,
You have a question?
add some comments? If anybody would like to add some
Comments,
comments
questions?
there.
Any comments or questions?
Let's do it in the next week or two.
Oh, they're all being shy.
They're all being shy. Okay, you're
They're all
good. Okay,
shy.
okay. So we'll just thank you so much, and thank you very much, Johnny. Thank you. Yeah, I just turned it right down. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So that was great, Shalu. Great question. So that's the advantage of being here live in person. Okay, here we go. Okay. So now we're going to move on to more questions. So I'd like to hear from the audience. We have quite a few people watching here today. And Fred, do you want to make any comments at all? Okay. People are shy as far as making comments. But um, is the near death experience a glimpse into the afterlife, or is it purely a physical phenomenon? So I'd like to hear from you, and we'll project your comments on there. Oh, hey, Jennifer. Okay, we got Jennifer here. Jennifer Prattis. Jennifer says hi, Shalu. And she also says hi to me. So hi, Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer, do you have a comment or question regarding the afterlife experience? Basically, is it spiritual or is it purely a physical phenomena, just brain injury and brain chemical changes? Do you have any comments on that? Okay. So here's an interesting observation. There was one of the most prominent authors on the near death experience is actually a psychiatrist, and he was initially an atheist, very skeptical about the fact that this could be a spiritual experience, the spirit leaving the body in a near death experience. But he recounts the very first time he thought he would actually investigate this was a woman that he went to see that had overdosed, and he went down the hall to speak to her friend, and he had happened to have a stain in his tie from spaghetti at lunch, and he couldn't quite get it off. And this patient that had a cardiac arrest from overdose eventually came through, and when she came back to talk to him, she recalled very vividly the conversation he'd had with her friend way down a hall in a closed room, and she said that she even remembers the stain on his tie. So his argument is, okay, if it was purely a physiologic experience of brain trauma, biochemical changes, then how could she remember that much detail? And that's an argument that many make for the fact that this is actually a spiritual experience, that the spirit leaving the body, is that the details that people have are far beyond that, which could be explained through it's purely a brain injury or biochemical changes in the brain. And interestingly, there's actually one of the authors is actually a neurosurgeon that had a near-death experience after encephalitis and meningitis, and he remembers very vivid details of the experience. And he went from being a complete atheist to a born-again Christian, and ended up, writing a book on the experience, and was actually on Oprah sharing experience. And he looked at the physical theories, and he just couldn't possibly explain the physical theories from what he experienced. So Denise, let the old system die and let the new system live. heaven on earth. And Ron Martin, Denise, I'm assuming you're trying to get the attention of one of your friends to follow the show. And Mary, I believe that near-death experience a glimpse of the afterlife, definitely spiritual. Okay, can everybody just weigh in through a comment? And if you're here live, if you're here live and you're not shy, then you're welcome to take the camera and make a comment live like Shalou did. So, Mary, you read the book, the book of the neurosurgeon. Okay, there's Denise. Yes, so Denise is trying to get. So, Ron Martin, if you're out there, uh, Denise is recommending that you follow this show. Okay, so that's the first question. So we're gonna move on for the sake of time. We're gonna move on to the next question, which is a very provocative one, and that is this: is MAID, which is medical assistance in dying, or physician-assisted suicide, is it compassionate care, or is it doctors playing God? Is it gone too far? So, just in a way of background, prior to June of 2015, it was a criminal offense for a physician to take the life of a patient. And then in June 6, 2015, physician-assisted suicide, which is now coined MAID, was removed from the criminal code. So it was no longer a criminal offense for a doctor to take the life of a patient. And then we saw, just one sec here. Then we saw in March 17th, 2021, Bill C7. So Bill C7 revised the eligibility for physician-assisted suicide, and it became broader. So no longer did a patient require terminal illness and agonizing pain, unrelenting pain. They softened the criteria for physician-assisted suicide, or MAID, through Bill C7. And then the most dramatic change is here. The most dramatic change was in March of this year, just recently, March 9th, 2023. So literally just within the last month or so, Bill C39 now incorporated mental illness as a criteria for MAID. So in other words, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling hopeless, you can now consult your physician and they will arrange to take your life. So you can see that the momentum and the progression has been quite rapid since the last 2 years, from Bill C7 to Bill C39. And I'm very interested in hearing everyone's comment on this. Is this gone too far? Is MAID compassionate care, or is it doctors playing God? So just look to the comments here. So, okay, so Mary believes that MAID is evil. Do you want to elaborate on that, Mary? Okay, I see that. And Denise says that it's gone way too far. So, do you believe, Denise or Mary, whoever is listening, do you believe that there should be physician-assisted suicide, or MAID? It should be available and legal, but it's just gone too far as incorporating all these other criteria like depression, and even they're now even talking about children qualifying for MAID. So obviously it's accelerated. Did you want to make a comment? Okay, sure. Oh, perfect. Okay, so maybe just go ahead. I'll get you set up. Okay, we have a live in-house comment here, so just one moment. What a great host here, Shalou. Okay, so okay, this should work here. Just one second. I'm gonna put you in the stream. Okay, here you go. Yeah.
Okay, so Kathy's got a comment here.
Oh, Kathy, great. Okay, so Kathy Edwards in house here. Kathy, comment about MAID.
Well, I just wonder, nothing's ever said in the medical community about why someone's depressed, or help them out in a little bit more out of their depression. how instantaneous is this? How soon are they offering this to people that have depression or such?
Well, that's a great question.
How did
And
they get to that?
yeah, no, here's the thing that's happening is that they're making it easier and quicker to kill yourself, or to have a physician kill you. So now, like it used to be that there was a waiting period of like a week before, from the time you have the consult and the approval to the time you actually have uh, the killing, if you will, or the murders. I mean, sorry, the suicide. Physician says a suicide. That's my quiet voice. Um, but now they're compressing that. So now they're saying you don't have to wait a week. Basically, if the physician is available, you can have the consult, the approval, and your physician can even come to your house and do it for you. So yeah, I think people, even people that support a physician-assisted suicide, are having some concerns right now, just because it's so accelerated, it's so easy. Because my question to you, Kathy, is like, is that the right time to make such a critical, literally a life and death decision when you're in the depth of depression?
Well, when somebody is that down and out and that far depressed that they're actually thinking of that, it used to be they'd talk you out of it. Try some way to resolve this. That on the outside, but what about how did they get to that point in the first place? Not just try and talk them out of it, but how did they get to that point? What other medications are they on? Are they eating properly? Are they in a bad living situation? There's so many different factors where it's, hey, it just seems this is the quickest way out, which is, in my opinion, that is wrong. So
Yeah.
there's something broken in the system.
Well, it seems to be a real zeal to do the MAID, like to really push and even market the MAID. We saw some commercials that really almost romanticized it with the ocean, a woman talking about how wonderful the experience was leading up to this. What do you think is, like, on a deeper layer? What do you think is prompting such enthusiasm from the governments and physicians to do MAID? It's a provocative question.
I think we all can surmise that, but that's as far as we go.
Shalu, did you want to make any comments?
Actually, I have a very interesting story I'd like to share with you because, although everything Kathy said, I totally hear and I agree with. We're in 2023. So September 1st, 2021, my dad, he did MAID. He took medical aid assistance in dying. And he did not tell us.
Wow.
We were informed after the physician had already performed the procedure because those were Dad's wishes. Now, you ask me if I had known, what would I have done? It's a very unique story because my dad had been battling colon or rectal cancer for 11 years. And after chemo, radiation, hormone therapy, more chemo, he'd already had the surgery right off first, which they told him, if we cut it out, you're fine. But no, it might have touched other parts, so we have to do radiation. Now we have to do chemo. And after rounds and rounds for 10 years of them doing this to him, you couldn't even hug him. The man was in so much pain. He literally told me, he said, I feel like someone is sawing at my bones from head to toe.
Wow.
Okay. To me, in that case, that was the best choice for him because that's what we do. We're kind to our pets, right?
Yeah.
And had Dad included me in that, I would have fought for him for that to happen. But look at what precedent that's set now. There's other family members that are sick. And they're nowhere near as sick or as suffering as Dad was, but because of chemo and radiation, because that's what everyone tells you to do, they are in pain. And so now, because the precedent is set, they're like, maybe I should just do what he did. And yet I've been taking care and nursing my aunt and my mom for the last 48 hours, and I'm able to turn them around, right? They're starting to feel better. But going to the doctor, and that's what my aunt kept asking me, is why doesn't the doctor tell me a therapy for this? Why doesn't he tell me an answer when I say, why are my feet numb? Why doesn't he tell me that there's a different way of getting rid of my constipation. She was so constipated she couldn't even pee. Like
Wow.
literally, at that point, you're ready to blow. Her eyes wouldn't stop watering. Your nose is dripping because your body is trying to get rid of it somehow. Okay, and now she's feeling better. She's laughing. She's smiling, but she didn't get that assistance from the medical system. It's only, thank God, she heard me and she came to see me and followed whatever I asked her to do.
So, do you feel that, if I could summarize, maybe Shelly, what you're saying is that because of all the agony that your father went through, and largely as a result of chemo radiation, that MAID now offers so a short circuit, if you will, that people might take it as opposed to going for chemo and radiation?
No, I think that they break the people to that point, and when they can't make any money off of them anymore, right? Like they just go, okay, well, we can't make any money off of you, so let's just, help you on your way. Like literally the last time, because my mom's also taking chemo, and the first chemo they gave her, they told her if she wanted that same chemo back, that at this stage now, the government wouldn't cover it. She would have to pay $4,000 a month for half a dose and $8,000 a month for the full dose. Like that's
Wow.
insane.
Well, that really raises, I think, a great topic for one of the sessions, and that is the very origin of organized medicine in 1910, with the initial report and the association of Rockefeller with the American Medical Association. There was a lot of depth there
We
as
need to
far as
start asking
right.
questions.
Yeah, and I think it's happening a lot more now. People, especially after the era of the so-called the pandemic, I think a lot of people are asking a lot of questions right now in terms of the credibility, the effectiveness, safety of a lot of the treatments that they took for granted before. So thank you, Charlou. Some great comment. Stand by for more. Kathy, do you want to say anything?
I, I've heard Shali's story before, but in that context, we have so much in common because they told my dad the same thing. He had colorectal cancer, and they said, "Oh, we'll just do this. We'll do this surgery, and it'll be gone." And it wasn't. Oh, we took 5 lymph nodes, and one of them looked to be cancerous, so we have to do chemo radiation, and that
Wow.
did it. He ended up coming down with some sort of leukemia, and that even didn't do him in. It was issue after issue after issue after that, and of course he was a lifer then. He was a lifer patient because of the initial treatment instead of trying to treat it properly in the first place. So I
Wow.
resonated so much with what you said there.
Well, thank you. That's very sobering. Some very sobering thoughts. Thank you very much. And I think a lot of people are starting to kind of take a serious rethink about some of the really aggressive, toxic treatments that are offered. Myself included, having practiced, medicine for 30 years, and seeing, especially in really end stage cancers, the ineffectiveness of chemotherapy in most cases, and sometimes the potential um, ex- expediting the harm and potential death with treatments when there's no obvious cure. So thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Kalu.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Okay, stand by. Okay, so we get thank you, some great comments there. Thank you very much, Shalu and Jennifer. Here, I believe the hospice did this to my mother in 2019. She was talking but agitated. They gave her an injection via intravenous. 20 minutes later, she passed. I'm so sorry to hear that. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry. Really sorry to hear that. Okay. Let's see some more comments here. Thank you very much. I see more people are engaged here. Mary says MAID should not be allowed. Mary, do you think that should be criminalized again? Oh, yeah. There's your next. Look, you read my mind. Yes, it should be illegal. Um, Mary says MAID saves the healthcare system money, so it's being pushed. That's my opinion. I think some people do share that opinion. Um, Jennifer, Mary just says she's so sorry, and so Jennifer, just that comment about it's not offering help, it's blatant murder. Is that regarding which context? Um, just let me know about that. Okay, so here's Bear. Bearberry, I heard of a case of a young lad who sought MAID as he was depressed because he didn't have a girlfriend like his friends. If memory serves me correctly, he was only 13, 14 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him to find a girlfriend. Well, that's a tragedy, and that may become an increasing reality, unfortunately, as MAID is extended to cover children. You know, it's interesting when I did research on MAID and the progression of the different bills. Let's go back to those. This is the history of MAID. So March 17, 2021, C7 made it much more liberal as far as offering MAID. The criteria were a lot less for qualifying. And now this bill C39 was really accelerated. We were supposed to wait a whole year to evaluate extending MAID to mental illness, but for some reason the government fast tracked it. And now there are actually literally no exceptions to a patient seeking MAID because they're depressed. So I'd like to hear people's comments on that. Should people that are depressed be offered essentially physician-assisted suicide? And is it really suicide? Is it not? Is it suicide or is physician-assisted suicide? Seems like a bit of a paradox. Okay, let's hear. We got some great comments here coming up. So, did you see this comment here, Shalou from Jennifer? Agree with those circumstances. That's compassionate care. So I think Jennifer was referring, Shalou, to the severe, unrelenting pain, like your father was describing, like a saw. Obviously, horrific agony. And Jennifer agrees that under those circumstances, it could well be justified for compassionate reasons. And I will say this: like there are certain situations, like even apart from MAID, where when I was in practice, sometimes pain, particularly bony pain, can be so severe and so agonizing. It's like a constant torture. And there are some cases where, in order to get the pain under control, that the morphine dose necessary to bring pain under control ended up suppressing the respirations, and the patient passed. Now, that's a case where you could argue, well, it's physician-assisted suicide, but you could also make the argument that no, actually, that patient was literally being tormented, and they were titrated doses of morphine to the point where finally they got pain under control, but it was so strong that it suppressed the respirations as well. So some would say that's compassionate care. Okay, let's see here. Mary, Bear, heartbreaking. MAID must be made. So Mary's making a very strong argument that MAID should be illegal with no exceptions. Okay, here's a comment. I think that I'd be interested, a provocative comment, and I'd be interested to hear from the Christians that are listening, or anybody with a faith background. You cannot be a Christian and support physician-assisted suicide or MAID. Christians must be pro-life. Comments? Jennifer, think someone is living in so much pain for so many years, it's hard to determine. I would not want to live in that much pain. So again, Jennifer arguing that there's a certain point where it could be compassionate with the severe, unrelenting pain. Okay, so here's Kathy. Welcome aboard, Kathy Piquette. Wayne's mom had chemo for lung cancer. They forgot to tell her to keep walking. She got a blood clot and died. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Was she hospitalized when she died, or was it outpatient chemo? Kathy, if you could just comment on that. Okay. Mary saying she believes in alternative treatment for cancer care. Jennifer, what do you think? The children and depression. So what do you think of that? Children and depression. Okay. Hey, Shalou. Shalou, great to see your active participation here. So half the pharmaceutical drugs have depression and anxiety as a side effect. That actually may well be the case. Now, homeless people, are wanting MAID due to their circumstances. Okay, so here's a situation where we've actually heard reports from people in the military that have been suffering with various disabilities, financial issues, and an official government official has sent them a letter offering MAID instead of offering financial or social support. Said, have you considered MAID? So clearly it's heavily on the radar of government for whatever reason. It's heavily on the radar of government to push MAID. The person's agonizing, long-lasting terminal pain. Yes. Okay. So they've made MAID legal now for those 18 and younger, and I don't think they require parental consent. I think you may be right, Bear. Okay, Kathy. So yeah, so your mom had a blood clot. I'm so sorry to hear that. In hospital. And let's see, Mary here. Don't believe euthanasia under circumstances. Or cannot place a value on life. Many people live in extreme pain every day. Well, I mean, I think what Mary's saying is this, and I'd like to hear people's response to that. What Mary's saying is, look, it's a slippery slope, if you will. So we can see this if you go back even to the 1980s. Abortion used to be criminal. It actually used to be illegal for a doctor to uh, administer an abortion on a patient. And then they eventually changed the criteria so that three physicians required a signature to approve the abortion. And then they took that away. And then by the late 80s, abortion was essentially an elective procedure. Um, and then with time, it was pushed from like first trimester to second to third. When they decriminalized it altogether, there was actually no criteria as to when abortion is legal. So technically and legally, a baby, an unborn, can be aborted right up until a minute before birth. Now, it doesn't happen often, but it's not illegal and it's not criminal. So 1 hour before the baby comes through the birth canal, they can be aborted. 1 hour later, it's a criminal offense of murder. So you can see then we started focusing more on end of life after that. Once the sanctity of life was now a blurry line, it was now subjective. There was absolutely no absolute concrete beginning and end point. Euthanasia started after that. And I remember back in around 1990, a group of physicians belonging to the Christian Medical and Dental Society said, you know what's coming next is it's going to be euthanasia, and it's going to be expanded euthanasia. And this was 1990. So here we are 32 years later talking about euthanasia for people that are depressed and now for children. So I think Mary may have a valid point. It seems absolute and it seems black and white, but I just ask you this: is that perhaps the safest, if you will, and the most ethical? Because once you have no lines, once the lines are blurred, now it's like open, basically open attack on all of sanctity of life. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. What's that you don't agree with, Jennifer? No MAID for children and depression. Okay. Okay, I have a question for you with respect to life in general. A question for the audience and listeners. When does life begin? When does human life begin and should be protected? And when does it end and no longer needs to be protected? And how do you determine that? Denise, my mother years ago made sure her doctor made her comfortable. She knew who would take her last breath. Okay, thank you. So if I could just suggest when you're making comments, just maybe tag on what that comment. So nor do I. So Barry, just maybe you could clarify with another comment. Nor do you what is that related to? Because there's so many comments coming in now, it's hard to determine what you're responding to. So I appreciate that. So Kathy, personally, I think we need to let death take its course. Choose life as always. Jesus said, Life and death before you. Choose life. Too strong of a subject to go against the Bible. Kathy, question for you. What do you think of a situation where someone is in unrelenting, severe pain and they're being tormented every day, and the medications like fentanyl, morphine, uh, all the other drugs are not controlling the pain? Is that justification for euthanasia? So Denise agrees with Mary about the absolute sanctity of life. Okay, so yeah, so Henry Morgentaler was, of course, a big advocate for abortion. He performed the most abortions in Canada. As a result, the government of Canada gave him the Order of Canada for his accomplishments of being the number one abortionist in Canada. Well, the other, in fairness, if I could present the other side, they would argue that he was a proponent of women's rights and women's freedom of choice. Of course, that's a huge debate in itself. Is the unborn, and should the unborn be protected or not? Okay, so Jennifer is says that it's really from the moment of conception is when life begins, and many would argue that that's actually a valid starting point, because as soon as the sperm fertilizes the egg, it's called a zygote, and at that point, the zygote already has taken 23 chromosomes from the mother, 23 chromosomes from the father. The whole program for the human being is already embedded into that zygote, the fertilized egg. So everything, hair color, eye color, gender. There are two genders, by the way. I should always keep clarifying that, because there's been some confusion about genders, how many genders there are. So biologically, it's always been determined there are two genders. Personality, and then within the first 4 weeks, the heart is beating already. So those that argue that life doesn't begin from conception have a difficult time justifying, well, when does it begin? Is it when the heart beats? Is it when uh, like, how do you define? Is it when there's brain activity? Like, how do you define them? Okay, so we have great comments here. So say, I think it's justification if the patient asks for it. Pain makes you tired and want to go home, but drug not killing the pain. Do marijuana or drink. But in all honesty, I have an uncle that in that condition he used marijuana. So here's interesting. Like, a lot of people have changed their mind about marijuana or hemp. That um, before Rockefeller funded this report to only allow medical doctors adopt the big pharma model in 1910. They're the only ones that are allowed to have a license, and everybody else got discredited. Actually, marijuana and hemp was actually part of the treatment for severe pain. It was also part of the treatment for for some of the cancers as well. So that stopped. Okay, so Sylvia, welcome aboard. Sylvia, good to see you back. You were here. You made some great comments last week. I'm just going to change the light here a little bit just to see if we can get more light. Okay. So we're having here a sunset. A sunset now. The sun has set. It's now dark. So Sylvia says, I think MAID would be acceptable only to consenting adults and under extreme circumstances, as in their being kept alive. Okay. Um, so Mary, never justification for murdering a patient. And here is a comment. Kathy and Mary are agreeing. Okay, so as we wind down, we're going to go for about another 10 minutes or so. As we wind down, I welcome any more comments on either topic. So the two topics here have been the afterlife and MAID. So basically, is near-death experience a glimpse of the afterlife, and is MAID compassionate care or doctors playing God? So Jennifer agrees with Sylvia. Mary, pro-life doctors and nurses should not be forced to participate in MAID. So that actually brings up a great point, Mary. So here's what's happening is that doctors, according to the college, are mandated to participate at least in the referral process. So if I was a practicing family doctor, patient came to me depressed and said, "Hey doc, I would like you to arrange for me to have MAID, to have physician-assisted suicide." So let's say it's against my conscience. I say, I don't feel comfortable. I think we can look at alternatives to suicide. And the patient takes offense to that and complains to the college. I would be disciplined because once there's legislation by the government, doctors are bound to follow that legislation in spite of their moral conscience. So this has been really troubling for physicians of faith or physicians, even if they just have certain ethics, that they cannot decline a service even if they disagree with that service. So let's say, for example, in a severe case, a physician is totally pro-life, believes that suicide is murder. A physician says suicide is actually arranging for a murder of somebody, and they feel that's unconscionable. That's their own conscience. They can be disciplined, have their licenses restricted, and even taken away simply for declining to provide the referral process to that patient. So the college argues that, well, you're not actually participating in it, you're just making the referral. The physician of conscience would say, no, actually, I am participating. Like, you're asking me to find somebody that will perform that service when I believe that service is deplorable. That's in a severe case. So I'd also be interested to get your thoughts on that conscience rights for practicing physicians and nurses as well. Well, here's a reality, Mary and Jennifer, is that physicians are forced to participate at least in the consultation process, that they cannot decline to refer the patient for a service that they find unconscionable, which is an issue, and physicians have argued that this is a breach of the Charter of Rights, a breach of freedom of religion and expression. Anybody in house here want to add a comment on video? There's a little bit of a delay. I can hear a delay in the program. Some great comments here. We're live from the Simmering Kettle in Barrie, Ontario, with Shalou. The owner is right here, an active participant. Great point, Marian. I think a lot of physicians have chosen to actually leave medicine right now, or they've been forced by the regulators to leave. As very sad. I really appreciate all your participation here today, everybody. Kathy, Jennifer, Mary, Sylvia, Shalou in house, Kathy. Some really good, robust conversations here. So Kathy says a physician should definitely have the right to refer a suffering patient to another physician to do disapproval of death by a needle, I presume. Yeah, so the point, Kathy, is, are you saying a physician should have a right? Okay, so what do you think of this, Kathy? So let's say a physician can offer a patient an alternative for pain control. They feel that they should try alternatives before MAID. Should that physician be allowed to do that, or should they just purely follow the wishes of the patient and refer them for MAID? I think this raises a much deeper point in that who is the physician accountable to? Who's the patient caring for? The patient, or are they caring for the state and basically following the state's legislation? And obviously, we've seen in the last 3 years that's been a really troubling point when physicians decide to take a plan of action, a management step that it conflicts with legislation, conflicts with the narrative, if you will, conflicts with the directive by the college, and that's gotten some physicians in hot water. Yes, the state. Indeed, Jennifer, doctors, a lot of doctors practicing, particularly ethical doctors, do feel that they're caught between a rock and a hard place. All right. We thank you everybody for the participation. Christina, welcome aboard. As a Canadian, you have a right to practice your religious beliefs. So are people in Canada being forced to give up their rights when they're not doing harm to others? This is unconstitutional. I would agree wholeheartedly, Christina. I think the issue though is that. We're not seeing practical application of the law. We're seeing actually lawlessness in many cases, lawlessness by regulators and by government. And if you're actually available tomorrow evening, I've been doing some really deep digging into the very origins of organized medicine and how we got to where we are today. And it's actually shocking to me the things that I've discovered when I practiced medicine for 30 years and never saw any of this clearly. So I am speaking in Sharon tomorrow. There's a poster on my Facebook page. It'll be book signing at 6 o'clock, and then the talk is at 7 o'clock. It's going to be titled "Dreams, Extremes, and Political Schemes in Modern Medicine," and I'm going to use a very interesting metaphor. Kathy, would you like to make a comment? Sure, absolutely. I'll just put you. I'll put you on the. I'll put you on the screen. Okay, just make sure your face is displayed. Okay, so go ahead. No, it should be. Oh, let me just get you back on. So just one second. Oh, let's have to make sure. Excuse me for one moment. We'll just get comments here. Live comments. Okay. There you go. Okay. There you go.
I don't know how controversial this is, but you were saying about consent, and then I thought, I'm hearing Shalou's beautiful and very emotional story.
Just there's no echo.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate that.
Oh, there's even more echo.
Yeah, maybe go all the way back. Yeah, thank you. We're trying to. We're conflicting. Our mics are kind of. Okay, here we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, back to the corner there. Okay, perfect. Okay.
I feel like
we're live here.
Commercial.
There you go. Now you're good. Now you're perfect. Now you're perfect. Okay.
Well, I just had a comment, and maybe it might be controversial, but
we like controversy.
You mentioned about consent and whatnot, but what happens when a patient is fighting with all their might for their last breath, but yet he is going, his body's giving out, but then they suggest Dilaudid. And my dad was very suspicious, and how do you explain what these new shots are and whatnot? I felt guilty allowing this to happen to my dad. So he gave no consent, and yet the medical system allows this. So I don't know how controversial that is. Looking back now, the whole treatment plan that my dad was on, I would question a lot more now, especially how he ended. You know, it was very emotional, and I'm still emotional over it. This was 5 years ago. So that was just the ethicalness of Dilaudid, or am I saying it right?
Yeah, Dilaudid for sure. Dilaudid. So Dilaudid is a pretty strong narcotic. So is your concern that he was given that like without a lot of consent, and it led to his demise?
I have to come closer because I can't hear you.
Okay. No, I was just wondering, did that Dilaudid result, you think, in his breathing?
It just sped up the process.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And your concern is maybe he wasn't privy to all the information.
He didn't know what was going on.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a concern. Yeah. Well, I think in general, there's a broader question here, the whole consent question. and if you actually consult legal minds, we've seen a complete breach of the consent process the last 3 years, and it may have been happening like for a long time in medicine. People aren't really given all the information that they need.
When you think about all the medications that he had over the years to get him to that point and then rush him along even more.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, this is something that's been happening the last 3 years is very strange. And one of the things that's really, I think, a pervading thread through all this is this kind of almost like a cavalier attitude toward life in general. Like, for example, with all the sudden deaths that we had, okay, whether we could argue what the the causes for sudden death. But it used to be when I practiced medicine that if somebody died suddenly, it was a big deal. Like the coroner was called in, there was toxicology, there was an autopsy report. Now people die suddenly, and it's like, okay, let's move on. Let's move on with cremation. Let's move on with burial. And there's no investigation. There's so many people that have died mysteriously with no investigation, and that to me is quite a mystery. Like,
It's like it's normal.
yeah, it's almost normalized. Exactly, it's like normal. And even now, like kids that are dying, like that used to be a massive deal. You had to explain why somebody died, or else you could be, well, what if it's foul play? What if they overdosed on a drug and you don't know? Or, like, what if they have a congenital issue that their family should be aware of? So, and I think this theme is pervasive in a lot of the discussion that we've had tonight. This kind of cavalier attitude toward life.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kathy. I even put your name on. I even put your name on.
Your battery's almost dead.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, really appreciated everybody's input here. So we should wrap it up because I think, Shalu, I think the restaurant closes soon. Okay, let's go back to live here. Live from Simmering Kettle in Barrie, Ontario. Okay, so we're just going to take a couple more comments, and then, boy, it's the momentum is really picking up here, Shalu. Now, Shalu has been gracious to extend her hours today and keep her staff here. I think you said we could go through till the morning, Shalu? Till the morning? Can we order breakfast now for tomorrow? Can I get three cheese omelet, please? Yes. I would. I'll start writing. I always say I wrote like half my book here at the Simmering Kettle, Life in Medicine, Dreams, Extremes, and Political Schemes. Okay, we'll just take a couple more comments and then we're going to wrap it up here tonight. Thank you, everybody, for great dialogue. Thank you for coming, John and Jen. Okay, so Jennifer, Bear says, Jennifer, my great aunt passed right after being given Dilaudid too. Yeah, I think she's referring to you, Kathy, Jennifer. So Bear had a great aunt that passed away right after Dilaudid. She had Bear had a great aunt that died after Dilaudid as well. Yeah. She's just sharing now.
It's just so freely given.
Mm-hmm. So Kathy, Jennifer, oh no, I'm so sorry. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer says, "I love your books." Okay, so I'm going to. I'm very encouraged by that. Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm going to share something that's actually really exciting. Okay, and I haven't shared this before. Okay, so this is Life in Medicine, Dreams, Extremes, and Political Schemes. Thank you, Jennifer, for your very kind words. So I did some research on books and authors and success of books. And I found that only 6% of authors sell 1,000 books or more. 6%. So Life in Medicine has now sold 1,600 books, 1,600 copies. So we're in that 6%, and I feel very blessed and honored. And I want to thank everybody that supported the book project. And it's really been what I call super spreading information, super spreading truth. And I thank you very much for that. And tomorrow's talk will be focusing on life in medicine and the programming of a physician and recovering from the programming of organized medicine. And boy, it was a very crafty plan going back to 1910. And in my research, I won't say too much about the talk tomorrow. Thank you. Oh, thank you. In my research, boy, I found that the way that organized medicine was weaved was very, very similar to what we've been seeing in the last 3 years. It's almost like it's now more exposed. It's now more obvious, but it's been there for a long time. The things that we're now discovering. Okay, Carrie. Well, thank you. Oh, thanks. Thanks very much, Carrie. Welcome aboard. If you have any last comments about the afterlife, is it a spiritual event or is it purely just chemical? Are we just biological beings with no spirit or not? Okay, so thanks, Mary. And then Carrie, my grandmother was poisoned for years after she had emotional troubles. She was electrically shocked. No one monitored her for 50 plus years. So I'm assuming, Carrie, you're referring to ECT, electric shock therapy, that's been used for depression. Not used as much anymore, but yeah. Okay, so so tomorrow, the speech, I'm going to talk to the organizers. I will be recording the speech. I'm not sure if they're going to run a live or not. I'll have to speak to the organizer tonight, but I will record it and we'll share it as well. Kathy, we have the political scheme book. Yes. Evil people, what's happening to the world? Is there a prison or worse? Good luck. Thanks very much, Kathy. All right. Looking forward to your speech. Thanks, Mary. Scott. Okay, where's Scott? I don't see Scott. Can you make a comment? Is it Scott? I'm just seeing if Scott made a comment. I guess he's just joined live. Okay, so we're gonna conclude tonight, and I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight on Doc Talk. Dr. G, I just want to scroll this here. If you could remember, Doc Talk is listener supported, so there's no other source of funding. So if you feel prodded to donate, any donation above $60, then you'll receive the two books, Life in Medicine and The Children Speak, and that's actually including shipping. So it's actually less than if you were actually to buy them. And then this is the address, Doc Talk with Dr. G at gmail.com. I'd also would welcome any comments about future programs, topics that you'd like covered. And also just to remind you that I also do one-on-one coaching as well. So if you have a specific question about health and wellness that you'd like total dedicated research, totally focused research, and then a conversation, either teleconference, Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom, then I would be privileged and honored to do that. And I've had a number of people that have reached out to me, and we've done those half-hour discussions, but also I put in a lot of research into the topic as well, capitalizing on the blessing I had to be trained in clinical research and publishing many papers in peer-reviewed journals. So I take that skill set and apply it to your specific question. So thank you very much for joining us. And we're here live from the beautiful simmering kettle with beautiful Shalou and with her guests over there. And thank you so much, Shalou, for hosting us. Your great hospitality. And the coffee is great. I got some decaf coffee, but I spilled cream all over the table here. So I can clean it up if you like. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us tonight, and see you every so today's an exception. Today was Tuesday, but it's typically on Thursdays at 7:30, Doc Talk with Dr. G, and we'll see you next time, and many blessings to you.